So we're now into talking about the future. We've had a few future threads already today, and we're going to dive into a little bit more of a future. So I'm going to introduce to you Tony from our Perth office, who is our Director of Research and Innovation, and something of a whiz on generative AI. He's scowling like, no, I haven't never touched it before in my life. So this is Tony. We're also going to introduce Jeff Chang, who is from one of our customers, Canva, and also George Abraham from Novatti. My apologies. Welcome aboard.
Well, thanks everyone for coming. AI, so that's an interesting topic. We've heard probably lots about it over the last few weeks. Was at the ASA conference in Melbourne a couple of weeks ago, and I think there were 47 talks out of the few hundred that were there on AI in some sort or another. So it's definitely the subject of the day. Everybody's interested in it. We've got two experts here that are going to talk to us about how they're doing things in their organization. We've got a few questions to run through. So before we get started, we'll just do a couple of introductions. Do you guys want to just give a quick introduction to yourselves?
I'm George Abraham. I'm the CISO for the Novatti Group. We are a payments and financial services company based in Melbourne.
I'm Jeff Chang. I lead the security risk and compliance team at Canva.
Thanks, guys. So I was talking to Shemaine about what we talk about today, because there's so many different things we could talk about with AI. I suggested to start with that they replace me with a robot, and I sort of stay up there out of the way and get the AI to do all of the answers. But she said that's too expensive, so you're kind of stuck with me, unfortunately. We had a bit of a laugh about the things that we could talk about. One of the first questions to kind of break the ice that she suggested was that we ask our panelists if they could create an AI assistant with a celebrity name, who would it be? Or a celebrity voice? Which celebrity voice would you go for?
Yeah, I think we can all agree that Morgan Freeman has got the most wonderful voice. You know, where in movies, when you see God speak, it's always Morgan Freeman. So for me, it would definitely be Morgan Freeman.
Tough to beat. Yoda would be one.
Yoda's a good one.
Otherwise, Sideshow Bob from The Simpsons, Kelsey Grammer. I'd love to.
Very intelligent. Sideshow Bob. Master criminal.
Yeah. Evil mastermind, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, excellent. Good answers.
So, an evil mastermind as an AI voice. We are really setting the tone today.
I like that. I like that. So, in all seriousness, so artificial intelligence, it's with us. We know that it's been around for a long time. It's in the middle of all of the products that we use within security. You've got machine learning. It's been there for forever. We've heard of the Turing test. It's been around forever. And there's been universities that have been developing AI to try and beat this Turing test for a long, long time. We're close, if not there, with things like ChatGPT, where it can actually come back and give you really quite cogent answers to well-formed questions, and you can iterate on that, and there's ways to do that that give you really profound answers to questions that you may not have even thought of as you go through that iteration. How do you see this type of technology affecting your business in the near term?
We are a massive software development shop. We've got a lot of software developers, and we have slowly started using AI-powered tools to make the life of our software developers much easier. So things like finding inefficiencies in the code base. So we've done secure software checking using static rules for a long time, but now we are trying to make the life of the software developers easy with finding inefficiencies. Also, software developers are notorious for not providing documentation and for leaving the organization all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So we are trialing some tools that will get the context out of the code and make the handovers a bit more easier.
I've tried that myself, actually, putting some code into ChatGPT and asking it to comment it for me. It does a really good job. So it's like one of those things that if you try to get your developers to do it, see how well they do, but maybe the AI is actually going to do a better job.
Indeed. Yep.
Yeah. What about yourself?
I mean, Canva's very bullish on AI. I don't know if people follow Canva the product, but
Yes.
there's a whole heap of what we call the magic suite of features in Canva, which are all generative AI features. You've got text to image, text to video, this sort of thing. So on the product side, yeah, very much investing in uplifting the product with such features. But on the organizational side, Canva's also been incredibly bullish. We've basically had directives from upon high to say, find ways to use generative AI to make yourselves more efficient. And I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about the risk aspects of that later on. But yeah, it's been very pleasing, I think, to see all different roles all around the organisation.
Yeah.
Just see how they can optimise their own processes, make themselves more efficient, utilise generative text basically for the most part to get things done faster. Like I said, there's risk to that, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, there are obviously risks to it, but I mean, the good thing about Canva, you're embracing the fact that this new technology is there and available, and while the risks are apparent, you need to also weigh that up with the benefits that you're going to get out of adopting and being early adopters into that world as well.
Precisely. I don't think the risks are apparent to everyone, incidentally, but well, that's our job, right? So to get that cost benefit right.
Yeah. So from a risks perspective, what type of things have you done in your role to bring in some policy or bring in some guardrails around the adoption of AI?
Yeah, we were a little behind the eight ball in that our management sort of said to the organisation, go use AI, and then we sort of, hang on a sec.
What about security?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the risks, obviously you risk your staff taking all manner of information and basically sending it to a third party. And you talked about code in ChatGPT earlier.
I wrote that code myself. That was messing around. That wasn't
fine,
code or anything.
Fine, but I mean, one of the policies that got put in place fairly quickly was, you can do this. However, you must use Canva's OpenAI account to do that, where we have particular controls in place. Yeah. Anyway, people don't tend to do that. There are more targeted tools for developers.
Sure.
Anyway. So there's the policy side of things. There's also one of the risks that we had to sort of explain to people is that generative AI can get things wrong. It's a statistical language model. Yeah, it can hallucinate stuff. And one of the policies that was put in place, which should be obvious, but that apparently wasn't, was that if you're using generative AI to produce stuff, you are still responsible for what it produces, right?
But so you basically, like humans, it makes crap up.
Yeah. So I mean, because we had some instances where people were just using it and then not really doing a proper review. So I think we've gotten past that now, and people understand those risks. But it's a bit of a journey trying to.
What about yourself, Charles?
So it's such a coincidence because our management told us the same thing, use AI for everything.
Yeah.
But see, we have made a conscious decision to avoid using public AI models. So our organization has got a lot of intellectual property, and we are very nervous about that ending up in the public domain through our AI engine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, there's a balance with things like privacy when you're using stuff like ChatGPT, and I'll use ChatGPT as just the example of a large language model because there are many others out there. One that we were looking at in Sekuro for use potentially in the future is called Ask Sage AI. Now that's one that's being used by the US government. And again, you can put private information in there because they've got a proprietary language model that they carve off and put some extra controls around, and it's guaranteed to be your information. So it's like any SaaS service would be, but you get the power of the LLM sitting behind it. But like any of those sort of things, you still have to concern yourself about the privacy of putting information in someone else's systems. Is it any different to the way you would view privacy in any other system that you're using from a cloud perspective, or is there some other nuance to AI that you think needs to be considered around privacy? George, or?
I don't think it's any different from a conceptual perspective. It's taking information and sharing it with a third party. I think the thing that makes it more challenging is the pervasiveness of the capability. I mean, earlier this year or late last year, when ChatGPT was making news headlines, the next day every single product manager on earth sat down and said, how can we utilize generative AI in our application? So applications that SaaS applications that you're already using within your organization and that you've already reviewed the vendor and such, suddenly have new features which present new risks. Mm-hmm. And as a security team, you're not using those. You don't necessarily have any visibility of that whatsoever. You're relying on the users around the organization to have the knowledge of your policies and sufficient risk knowledge to say, well, hang on a second, maybe I shouldn't be putting this information in this feature in this application which is approved.
Yes.
That's certainly a challenge that we've had to deal with.
Mm-hmm. What about yourself, George?
So if our intellectual property ends up in a public AI engine, the only way that the experts have told us is we'll have to untrain the model not to reveal that information, which is quite different from the security that we understand. How if information ends up on a website, for example, you take the website down. Mm-hmm. It's slightly different. So yeah.
Okay. Thinking about something slightly different. So when it comes to skills, and I'm thinking about bringing junior people into your organization and then training them up. That's typically the way we do within security. You get people that they come in at the ground level, they train up over years, they take their certifications. As we start to automate that entry level of, let's say, in cyber operations with AI systems, how are the skills gaps going to be met where you've got people coming out of university with a certain level of skills, maybe some experience, but all of the junior jobs are now automated? How do we get them to the first entry-level position in, say, 5 years' time, where it's quite far from where they might be leaving uni today?
I think it's not necessarily the case, in my opinion. I don't think it's necessarily the case that AI is going to replace that entry-level layer of the organization. I think it's just going to change the way that they work. There's a quote floating around somewhere that AI is not going to replace humans, but it's the case that people that use AI will or utilize AI effectively are going to replace those who don't. And I think so. You're going to get this shift in the skills, I suppose. Mm-hmm. That I suppose the awareness and the capability and understanding of how these tools can be used at the entry levels. Universities, I mean, they'll have to catch up, and training institutions will have to catch up. But that'll happen over time.
See, I feel like the same tools are going to be used by the hackers and the malicious actors too. So they're not going to be just junior tasks like we understand today. Those tasks are going to be handled by junior people with AI knowledge to detect and remediate more sophisticated attacks coming from sophisticated actors. So I think those entry-level junior jobs will still be there, but they'll be doing much more advanced stuff.
Well, one other, I think it could actually affect more senior staff as well. My team does customer security questionnaires, which is a lot of fun. Yep. And to effectively to have a human answering customer security questions, tools aside, to have a human and answering customer security questionnaires from enterprises, they need to have a fairly broad knowledge of the control environment within the organisation to be able to answer all these questions, but also knowledge of what those questions actually mean, because every organisation asks their questions differently. One of the things we've noticed is that the tooling vendors now that help respond to what they're doing is training models using the information assets that you have about your security posture. So maybe your SOC 2 report or your security white papers, your control register, that sort of thing. Questionnaires you've answered in the past. Now there's two ways you can use that information. You can have you can try to use that information to answer the entire questionnaire automatically, which will, that's one approach. But the other way is to get someone who doesn't necessarily have that entire view over the organisation to use that knowledge base and generative AI to answer those questions. So you've got a less knowledgeable person doing this function. Obviously, you still need someone knowledgeable creating the information assets that's training the model, but there is a shift there, I think, across the spectrum of experience.
Yeah, and I suppose with regard to AI replacing jobs, then it could be replacing jobs at any level of the organization, all the way up to CEO. So we all have processes that we follow and functions that we undertake. So, there is the concept of an autonomous organization running on a blockchain today, where the entire organization and its reward schemes are actually built on rewards that are set on a blockchain, and if you achieve your goals, you get paid out. Now, having AIs running within the organization that are actually powering the outputs of the organization, but basing the organizational structure on the blockchain, is a way that you could almost get away from having people in an entire business, potentially, except for maybe the salespeople who are out talking to other people. I think from that perspective, there's a lot of really interesting futures that we're heading towards. I mean, for your companies, how far out are you looking at the minute with regard to, let's say, innovative technologies, not just AI, but looking at things like quantum? How is quantum going to affect your business in the future? How is AI going to affect it maybe 5 years out, maybe 10 years out? Are you looking have you got an innovation section that's looking at these kind of new technology areas?
Yeah, I don't buy into the concept that, hey, AI is going to replace people and there's going to be organizations running on just AI. I just don't buy into it, because we have heard similar stories when it came to the early days of software development. Computers are going to replace everything. So I don't buy into that, okay? But technology has proved a lot of people wrong. We are trying to use AI to bring speed to product development and to make the work easier. So that's the main focus we have got, and the tools and products we are looking at is to facilitate that.
Yeah, I agree. You said that we made these claims when software development became a thing. Actually, we go all the way back to the Industrial Revolution.
That's right.
And those claims were made back then. We changed the nature of work. We didn't remove work. I think we're all working harder now than ever.
But I suppose through the Industrial Revolution, we introduced other risks to society beyond the risks of people's jobs and the changing of jobs. And those externalities made it an even more interesting world that we've come to today. So the AI revolution, along with all of these other new technologies, these exponential technologies that are changing the way the world works, are likely to have a marked effect on us over a longer period of time. So I guess it's about setting up whatever trajectory our businesses are on today from a cybersecurity point of view, and making sure that we stay in lockstep as the world changes around us, to make sure that that's going to, we're going to keep up. And that's where it's going to be interesting, I think, from us as security leaders, to figure out how we keep up without going, computer says no. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I suppose the last thing I wanted to talk about was ethics, and what are your thoughts around AI ethics and, you know, the introduction of artificial intelligence as a potential worker in your business? You know, do we look at them as colleagues? Do we look at these AI systems as, you know, what sort of, not rights, but how are they treated within the concept and construct of an organization? What are your thoughts around that?
I don't think I'll be able to see an AI engine as a colleague. You know, I like the old-fashioned person who I can, you know, shake hands and say hello, and the person is going to give me a smile. But a general rule, I think, when it comes to ethics is don't do the bad stuff. You know, and the ethics line up with what we do in security. You can use security to do bad and good. And the general rule is, hey, use the knowledge and the tools that you have to help and be productive.
Is that a policy that you've got within your business today, or is that something that you would have to introduce as these technologies begin to roll out?
It's more of a personal policy, but also in the organization.
Yeah.
Well, we have at least one AI ethics, I think it's got an ML ethics committee within our organization. And to your point about staying lockstep with progress, I mean, that was very much a reactive thing. It was very difficult to predict that you would need to think about these things. But you know, once we started putting AI into the product and more encouraging AI, the use of AI within the organisation, these questions started to pop up. And I think it's really then a matter of adapting to figure out what the organisation needs to be thinking about, which is where such committees, ethics committees, came from.
Yeah. Last year I was reading about an experiment that some medical researchers were doing. They had a system that was looking for new cancer drugs, and it was using AI to match up new molecules with particular cellular responses. And they retrained the model to look for molecules that were harmful to humans. And within 6 hours, this thing turned out 40,000 new chemical weapon signatures that could then be turned into actual weapons. So coming back to the point about ethics, it's about do no harm, and we have to kind of build this into our systems from day one. And I think this is where, from a security point of view, we need to think beyond cybersecurity and thinking about that ethics as we bring these things into our businesses, how we really make sure that we're not introducing something that is going to change the face of how our business operates. Thanks, guys. Do you have any final words for the audience today, or does anybody have any questions they want to ask anyone in the panel today? Self?
Nothing from me.
No?
No.
Right, well, thank you, everyone.